Well, Mary, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I am so excited to have you here because we're going to talk about sustainable leadership. And when I said it, I know the audience are going, what the heck are you talking about? We are going to talk about this topic because it's so important for you to understand where you fall in this category. But before we get started, Mary, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Thank you very much, Henrietta, and thank you so much for having me here today. It's a real pleasure to be here. So I am a global leadership coach. I am also an international best-selling author, and we can say more of that later on. But I work with leaders who are in the corporate space, so senior leaders, CEOs, directors, but also entrepreneurs and business owners who are in the process of forming and creating their own businesses as well, or taking their business to the next level. The people I tend to work with tend to be people who are transitioning in some way or making a change in some shape or form. But the bottom line is it's all about leadership. It's all about themselves. Who they are is how they lead and how they can be most effective as a leader.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to dive into this topic because we got some great stuff we're going to share with the audience here today. However, I'm really intrigued as to what your story is. How did you get started? How did you fall into this business? And how did that kind of evolve for you to where you are now?
Yeah, well, you could say I started out as a bit of a reluctant leader. And so I've had to grow and engage with my whole journey of being comfortable with being a leader and being who I am. But I actually began my career way back as an occupational therapist working in the health service, way back. But what that introduced me to was the whole psychological dimension. So I worked in child and family psychiatry, and some of the models and ways of thinking that I experienced in those times I still apply in my work today. So understanding human dynamics, how human beings tend to be, that's really where I got all my groundwork in those days. Then I moved into the travel industry, a completely contrasting experience. I worked frontline in customer service as a holiday rep for a few years, but then transitioned into leadership and into management in that industry. And eventually, having spent about 5 or 6 years heading up training and development within an international tour operator, I then went independent and set up my own business. And I've set my own business up twice. Once from when I was in the travel industry, but then I also revisited being employed when my daughter had grown up. So I brought my daughter up on my own as a single parent. And then as she didn't need me anymore as a teenager, re-entered employment working for Tesco and Polo Ralph Lauren. So I've got some quite mixed experience of the corporate world. And I also worked as an executive coach for Penna for quite some time, who are a change talent consultancy. So, and since 2016, I've been running my own business, and again, I've revisited being freelance and being independent, and I'm delighted to be doing what I'm doing. I really love what I do, and I'm a real stand for leaders feeling empowered and business owners feeling empowered to create what they want to create, and being conscious and mindful of the impact they're having, which is where the sustainability piece comes in, I think.
Yeah, and I absolutely love your story because even though you come from so many different backgrounds, it just shows that knowledge is key because you learn and you develop so much. You take aspects of what you learn from all of these different backgrounds.
Absolutely.
And you can implement it now in your business, and you can use that to the advantage of those that you work with so that they have those different levels of what you bring to the table.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
They can flourish from it.
They can. And I'm a great believer that each stage of my journey, so when I set out in my first role as an occupational therapist, I didn't know I'd end up being this person who, coaches these incredible leaders from all around the world and things. I didn't know that then. But when I look at my journey, I can see how each stage has been a building on the next step. And that's really satisfying. And it's felt that at each stage, I'm also using what I've learned and the capability I've developed as I move on to the next stage.
Exactly. And I think this is really important because for any female entrepreneur listening to this now, you might be thinking, well, I've been through so many different stages. I've had so many different careers. and what kind of can I take from each of those experiences, and how has that helped me develop, and how am I using that now within my business?
Yes.
But also at the same time, I've had women who said, well, I've only been in my business a small amount of time because I've done so many other things. I haven't got the experience yet. And it's like, no, you've got tons of experience already.
Yeah.
Because you've been through so many different facets of your life and so many different career changes. There's nothing wrong with having so many different career changes.
Yes.
Actually, it's advantageous to you because you get to learn so many different platforms and skill sets and strengths that you just never knew you had. It's just brought to light. And that's what I clearly see is happening with you in your story. And it excites me for you to tell that story, because a lot of people will go like, oh, this is a good thing. So where I am now is meant to be because of all those experiences I can bring to the table.
Absolutely. And there's a great saying, I mean, not everyone might buy into this, but there's something about the universe only presents to you what you're ready to learn.
Yes.
So I can remember once facing some tough times and thinking, oh my goodness, why am I having to deal with all of this? And a colleague said to me at the time, because you're ready, Mary. And it was like, oh, yes, that's true. I am actually, even though I might not be particularly enjoying this right now, I was enjoying the learning, because I think always the learning is valuable, even when it's tough.
Yeah, I love that saying. To be honest, I think I heard it a very long time ago, but now that you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's so true. That's so true. So let's talk a little bit about sustainable leadership. I think, as we said it, a lot of people go like, okay, what is this? Do I really apply? So let's talk about who can be leaders in particular. Who are those who are leaders?
So I hold the view that we are all leaders. We all are leaders in our own lives, because the hub of it at leadership is influence. So we're constantly influencing ourselves and deciding ourselves as to which choices we might make in things. We are leading ourselves. If you're a parent, you're leading your family, you're influencing your children, you're influencing your partner. To a greater or lesser extent, who knows? But you are in that position of influence. So we are potentially all leaders. And certainly as an entrepreneur, you are a leader in your business. And I would say you're probably a bigger leader than that, in terms of you will be influencing your community in some ways. If you're developing a product or a service, you will absolutely be out there influencing. And that's what leadership is really all about. So I work with leaders in the corporate space who, you look at someone working in a larger organization, they have obviously got that large remit of being able to influence and make a difference in the constraints or the context of their organization. But as a small business owner, you're still a leader. You still are making that difference in terms of influencing. And the sustainability piece is being mindful as a leader of your responsibility and the impact you have. And there's been lots of well-researched leadership research into how leaders impact those people that work for them. And it's well documented that people join organizations or they join businesses because they're inspired by the business, but they frequently leave because of the way they've been led or managed within that organization. So as a leader, whoever you are, wherever you're leading, you are having an impact on other people. And being conscious of that is what helps you be sustainable.
And I'm so glad you said that, because I think we kind of get brought up with the concept that a leader is somebody who's got a title behind their name. It's a manager in the corporate world, is a VP, a CEO, running your own business. Obviously, you would like to think you're a leader, but we sometimes do niggle with that in our mindset as well. It's like, am I really a leader? And you question yourself. But I'm so glad you said that, because for anybody on this planet, they're a leader as long as they have an influence one way or the other.
Wherever you're influencing.
And it's good that you're saying that, because it would make us think like, actually, yes, I am a leader. And you could have that a little bit more confidence in you, thinking, I am a leader. Yes, I have some sort of influence somewhere that I'm doing, whether it's just for my family, but I am a leader and I've got to step up into that role.
Absolutely. And, it's like, what motivates you to be a leader? So my whole thing is, if you're doing it because you want the status or you want the power and everyone to kowtow to you, that is not necessarily sustainable. Well, that is definitely not sustainable leadership. And I would question your motivations for wanting to be a leader. Because to me, leadership is all about playing a game that will make a difference to more than just you and your ego. It will go beyond self. And you'll be making a difference to other people around you, and it could be your family, or it could be your community, or it could be the planet. And in terms of organizations, sustainable leadership is leadership that means that people are engaged with you and happy to work with you, and that you're supporting for them to come to fulfill their leadership potential as well, which means you become a sustainable organization that stays in business and that people want to work for. So there's all those different elements to it as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're saying that, because my next question was going to be, what is sustainable leadership? And I've unfortunately experienced it myself working for corporate companies where it's just not fun. And people come and go because it is not a place that they want to work at.
Yeah.
So from your point of view, how would you describe sustainable leadership?
So I would describe sustainable leadership has 3 areas of focus. It has people, very much important, because if you haven't got the people on board, how are you going to sustain your organization? It's linked to making profit. So, it's kind of very, very hard to stay in business if you're not turning over and making a profit, but it's also linked to the planet. So it's like the 3 Ps of people, profit, planet. But at the center of that, which I would always put at the hub, is you as a leader, because who you are is how you lead, and how you show up will impact those 3 elements. And that's, to me, is what sustainable leadership is. So if you're conscious and being mindful of the impact that you're having, that will make a difference to all those 3 elements of the triangle: people, profit, planet.
And I really like it, because as you were saying that, I was like, people, yep, maybe I can tick that box. Profit, yep, I can tick that box with my business. And I'm thinking, planet, how do I tick that box?
Well, I can introduce you to what are called the Sustainable Development Goals, which are developed by the United Nations, actually, and many organizations, a lot of big corporates are buying into these, and they are 17 goals. That, such as gender equality is one of them. Another one is life in our oceans is another. Building sustainable partnerships, working as a global partnership, those are others. They're really fantastic goals. So by actually looking at one of those goals and thinking, which one do I want to connect to, will keep you in touch and aligned with supporting the planet.
That's so great that you said that, because for me, I'm like, what can I do? Do I plant a tree, or what is it that I need to do in order to fulfill the last P, the planet? But no, it would be really great actually to see those goals, because I think everybody here listening to that, if they want to go and say, yes, okay, I understand now, I am a leader, I want to be a sustainable leader, so I've got to fulfill all 3 of these Ps. But I think most people tend to kind of go like, oh, the planet, how do I fulfill that? So it's great to know that there's something like that can guide us in order to make sure that we can tick that box as well.
Yes.
So the other thing I want to ask you is, I know that you've written a book called Ego.
Yes.
What was the belief behind it that caused you to write this book?
Okay, so it was a book that was a long time in the writing. It was incubating for quite some time, and the actual writing of it took me about 3 years, but I think it was incubating a long time before that. And it's from working as a coach with other leaders and helping them overcome the things that were stopping them and holding them back, but also on my own journey of development as well, seeing what was getting in my way. And the common thread that kept coming through was myself, or with other leaders, it was themselves, and that's all linked to our ego. And the thing about ego is it is paradoxical, because we need our ego. We can't live as human beings in this world without our ego necessarily, because it's our survival strategy. It's what we've learned, usually as children, that this is how we survive in this world. This is how we get on. So it helps us in so many ways. But it's also recognizing that when we get to adulthood, those decisions we may have made way back as children aren't necessarily relevant or applicable now, and can potentially hold us back. So, for example, I talk in my book about ego traps. And one of the ego traps is people pleasing, which I think many women particularly, and I'm guilty of it, fall into that ego trap of wanting to make sure everyone's happy and blah, 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 blah. And then you end up exhausted because you're not happy, or resentful. I know there's times I've felt resentful. Oh, it's all right for them. They've got what they sorted, but I haven't got what I needed. So, you know, starting to build awareness around our ego and our ego traps can really help us do things differently, choose a different way. So maybe be clearer of my boundaries, so I'm not necessarily looking after others all the time. I'm also taking care of myself.
Yeah, it's so true. And I do find that is a big thing, because one of the things that a friend of mine and I spoke about the other day, was about taking care of yourself.
Yes.
And it came to just a general thing whereby we said that, or she said to me, she's like, you know what, one of the things that I'm very bad at is asking for help because of my ego. And I said to her, that's really interesting. Why do you feel you're scared asking for help? She's like, well, first of all, because there's this concept that when you ask for help, you're vulnerable, that you're not in a good position, that you need the help, you need somebody else who's stronger because you're not strong enough in order to help you get out of a situation. And then we had this conversation, and it came down to the fact, and I might have mentioned here on the podcast before, but I'm going to say it again. Equally, as human beings, we love helping other people. We love showing up and giving advice and supporting somebody else. But here's the thing, and I heard this, and I'm hoping I'm going to say this correct. If you don't show up and ask for help, you're denying the other person the possibility of showing up and helping you.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that we spoke about, because that is, again, an ego that is just holding you back.
That's an ego trap I would call solo flight, where you've learned probably as a child that, you know, if you stay strong and don't ask for help, that's a really positive things to do. Yes. But in adulthood, it's unrealistic as much as anything else. And it does, that asking for help really helps you connect with other human beings, and is, you know, the long and short of it, it's good for them to be helping you. There's some research done by a lady called Kelly McGonigal, who has a fantastic TED talk all about stress. And one of the things that came out of her research is that helping others actually reduces our own stress. So if we're starting to feel stressed, actually knowing you've got a support network in the first place is really good. So, and the fact that you can help others is also going to be helpful to you reducing your own stress too.
See, that's very interesting. I didn't know that there was some kind of scientific research behind it.
Oh, because,
let's face it, when you help somebody, you feel good, right?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to feel good all the time? But why are you denying somebody else that possibility of feeling good? So
absolutely,
you know, look after yourself, just like Mary said. If you're at a point where you're not looking after yourself, but you're just feeling like you're depleting yourself because you're looking after everybody else, hey, just go and look after yourself and start asking for help for once.
Yes,
it's not going to take anything away from you.
That old thing, you know, put your own life mask on or your own oxygen mask on first. So important if you want to be there for other people.
Yeah. What are one of the other egos that you find is a big trap for people in order for them to move forward?
Well, solo flight is the other one that I've just mentioned there. There's another one, and I'm talking about all the ones I'm guilty of, which you might be able to tell by the way I speak, called do it now. And you can always hear it's like that Nike, just do it now, just do it. But do it now, which is I think we're almost in this society where everything has to be done quickly and fast. Mm-hmm. And it puts enormous pressure on not just ourselves, but if we're leading other people, it's putting pressure on them as well. It also impacts the quality of what we might produce as well. So that's one to really watch out for, is wanting to rush through things. And the thing about it is any ego trap is linked to our anxiety. So it's whenever we have any sense of social anxiety or fear, then we are vulnerable to our ego waking up and an ego trap getting into play. And it's really important, therefore, one of the easiest ways to get yourself out of an ego trap, if you notice yourself getting into reaction, like when I notice myself going into, I've got to do this really quickly, is to sit back in your chair or stand up tall if you're standing and just breathe. And in my coach training, we call that the change breath. Because in taking that breath, you are slowing yourself down, you're calming your limbic system, and you're getting yourself out of your ego. That's the quickest way to get yourself out of your ego.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I'm very much guilty of it as well, because just yesterday, simple example. I was doing something. I had a conversation with somebody, and I was like, "Oh, I've got to email this to her. I promised I'm going to email this to her. I've got to post it here. I've got to remember to do it, but I've just quickly got to finish this." And then one thing led to another, and then I started doing another task, and I look at this post, and it's like, "Oh, I haven't done this yet. So I've got to do this now. I've got to do this now." And then I started rushing through this email because I know I'm late on it. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. I'm just saying things that I don't feel like I need to say. Let me just take a deep breath, stand back, reflect back on what I've written. And you can see when I'm reading what I've written, it is just so rushed. I'm like, this is not how I want this email to come across. I want this email to come across, through our conversation with the information that she asked for, that she can see that I was attentive to her, and that I'm taking the time to be very efficient, providing her with what she needed. Yeah. And I'm so glad I did that, because otherwise I would have just pressed send, gone off the email, go phew, off my to-do list, and she would have received this email going, well, this was rushed. And you don't want to come across like that. So that's just a silly example from my point of view, but I know exactly what you're saying. You need to step back. You need to take that breath, come out of that anxious space of, got to do it now.
Yes. Fantastic. And it is slowing it down, slow it down. And it's having the awareness in the first place, and then catching yourself, and then breathing and slowing yourself down. So you're not in that reactive, ego caught place.
Yeah. And I think this is really important. What you're saying is being aware of it, because for some people it's such a habit, they're not even aware of it. They just do it on impulse. Continuously all the time.
Yes. So part of leadership effectiveness is being on a constant journey of understanding yourself and building your self-awareness muscle. Very, very important.
Yeah, this is amazing. Well, I'm really interested in the book Ego, because I think it is so phenomenal to read about it, and especially about those traps, because let's face it, as they say, you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know those traps are there, how do you know if you are associated with them, if any of those are the obstacles holding you back?
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you, tell us a little bit about your offer, because when you and I got together, you said, well, this is what I'm going to give the audience today. And I was like, really? Are you sure about this? This is amazing. Tell us what you've got on offer for the audience today.
Well, what I have on offer, and I'm delighted to share, is 5 copies of my book. And I'm happy to share them via Kindle or via paper, whichever your preference is. My one ask is that in receiving a copy of my free book, so the first 5 people that sign up and receive a copy of my book, I really would invite you to write a positive review on Amazon for me. So I'd really appreciate that. But I'm very happy to share my book with the first 5 people that sign up.
Amazing. So just to be clear, do they need to sign up to your newsletter, or do they need to send you an email? What would you prefer?
I think just send me an email, and so that'd be great.
Okay,
we connect that way.
So hey, I'm not going to sign up for the book, because that is not fair. I'm leaving this option for you lovely ladies listening or watching this video. So my suggestion is, I'm going to put in my show notes at the bottom Mary's email address. So go grab her email, send her a lovely email, say that you've listened to this episode and you are wondering if you can have an amazing copy of her book called Ego. And then, like she said, she can either give it to you in a Kindle format, or she can give you a hard copy, whichever you prefer. And then what she would like you to do is, once you've read the book, the only thing is just to go and give her a review on Amazon. She would so appreciate that. And heck, who wouldn't want to give somebody a review if you read an amazing book, right? So by all means, go down to my show notes, grab Mary's email address, send her an email, and ask her for your free copy. And like she said, she's only going to do this for the first 5 people, so don't delay. There, we said it. It feels like we're running a competition here.
And when they send me the email, they could put Ego free book offer or something in the email heading, so it stands out for me to give it priority attention.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm sure everybody is scattering around now, finding their email address and opening up their Outlook or their Hotmail or Gmail. So while they're doing that, Mary, obviously, I find that sustainable leadership is a topic that we don't hear about often. But I'm glad that we've spoken about the fact that everybody is a leader, but also what it is to be a sustainable leader. And I think in so many ways, if we read your book, we can really dive into that a little bit more and just see, what more we have to offer if we can overcome those ego traps.
Yes.
But in a nutshell, if somebody would like to get in contact with you to talk to you directly about sustainable leadership, where can they get a hold of you?
So they can get hold of me. My email is mary@marygregory.com. So that's quite easy to remember. I've also got a website if they want to find out more about me and the different things that I offer in terms of the services I offer. I think my phone number is even on my website as well, so they can contact me via there too.
Amazing.
And I love connecting. Sorry, I was going to say, I love connecting with people on social media. So I know I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, the usual. So I love connecting with people.
Perfect. Okay. Well, what we're going to do for anybody who wants to get in contact with Mary yourself and to talk a little bit more through this, obviously her email will be below in the show notes, but also her website, LinkedIn, all the other social media platforms. So you can go and stalk Mary there a little bit as well and see what it is that she's working on. But Mary, I just wanted to say, well, first of all, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was just so lovely to talk about this and just to expand on this topic a little bit and talk a little bit more about the ego as well. But secondly, thank you so much for making 5 copies of this book available to the audience. I just think it is so, so freeing and so giving from your end. So thank you so much for gifting that away.
My absolute pleasure.
Good luck to all the ladies, the first 5. I'm sure you've already got tons of emails in your email address, in your mailbox. But thank you so much for offering that. It was such a pleasure having you here.
Oh, it was a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Henrietta. It's been delightful.
Amazing. Well, we're going to be in touch very soon again. So enjoy the rest of your day and we'll speak soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.